Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guest, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight, we're going to have a great conversation about the journey of the soul, the journey to awakening, and also how to navigate as an awakened being in this time frame in which we are in. Can we be both mystical, magical, spiritual, human, and be able to exist within all of these multidimensional aspects of ourselves and able to navigate day to day? From going to the grocery store, from being able to interact with your significant others, perhaps those at work, and how do you bring forth your spiritual essence? Wow. What I've always shared on the radio show before is that we do not have a linear existence anymore. It's pretty much we exist within a web. So if we can see that each day, as we are navigating through each of our experiences, we see how it's a web, and that will free us so much more to be able to say, oh, it is okay. Everything is fantastic. And it just brings so much more ease to our daily lives. Because many people are kind of like bucking up against the wall and they're saying, I have to get there. How do I get there? What's the next step? Give me a box of rocks and I'll create my path. When in essence, there isn't any. It kind of just shows up just as we share in the cosmic kind of esoteric, essence of the energy around us. And it's really something we can engage with. How can we tap into that? And how can we see we ebb and flow? Yes, we definitely go into the spiritual side, and sometimes we have to go into the human side. And it is definitely about the dance of life. Today, my guest is Stephen Shaw. He's a spiritual teacher, mystic, life coach, and author. And today we'll be talking about 2 of his 12 books, The I Am, A Journey to Enlightenment, which is about the process, and his book, Divine Love, which is about navigating the world in which you're in today as an awakened being. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Hey, it's lovely to see you. Lovely to be with you. Let's have a good conversation.
Absolutely. Stephen, don't you think that really what I shared, as many people are saying, that took in so many different aspects? I kind of encapsulated all 12 of your books, yes?
Yeah, the way I wrote the books, they are based on my experiences from my first journeys into awakening and satori's, all the way through to the power of radical love. And I wrote these books over the space of about 8 years, and each one is, I would say, a pathway to climb this mountain. It's the same summit on the top, but there are many different pathways people can take, and so every book covers a different pathway. And some people read 1 or 2 books, some people read all the books. And they will show you how to get to the top to find what I think is the most important thing in all of existence, which is to spend the majority of your time in a state of deep fulfillment and joy and love. And I always say to clients, I have a lot of clients too around the world, and I always say to clients, we sometimes look at these great spiritual teachers, we might call them awakened beings or whatever, and we often put them on pedestals, and then we measure ourselves against that, and we think we're supposed to feel incredible all the time, but that's not true. No one feels like that. The way I feel is, if you're working on about an 80-20, in other words, 80% of the time you're feeling really great and fulfilled and beautiful and blissful and awakened, and 20%, sure, you're going to wake up occasionally on the wrong side of the bed, or you didn't look after your nutrition or your body, or something upset you, like seeing somebody hurt somebody else. We are human beings. So I kind of feel like one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, and this is what I've learned over my life, but especially in the last 10 years, is to completely and utterly accept yourself as you are. Whatever your stage of personal development is, spiritual development, whatever your emotions are, whatever your feelings are, is to absolutely accept yourself. And acceptance, for me, is the number one component of love, especially divine love. And the more we can truly accept ourselves just as we are, even if we're progressing and developing, but truly accept ourselves as we are in every way, body, mind, and spirit, we will start to feel automatically this radical fulfillment and peace and joy.
You know, I think, Stephen, too, is that it is about acceptance. I think that's very much the first step on any open journey that you set your foot out on. Because when you come to that acceptance spot, you say, I'm taking up the walk. I'm picking up my staff, and I'm showing up. And once you show up, it's almost as if the door behind you now closes, because you are willing to say, I'll be open to receiving, I'm open to engaging, and I am stepping into the unknown. Because really, this journey that we talk about, the journey to enlightenment, is truly a journey of the unknown. It's just as you shared about gurus, you know, everybody wants a template. You know, they want to be able to know, how can I get there? And then when they don't get there in the same form as another person, they kind of get annoyed. When in essence, was it about the journey? Was it about something else? Or was it about just being there, showing up and walking in the steps? You know, sometimes people will say, you know, I want love. I want a total love, you know, I want blah, blah, blah love. And they write down all the quantifications of how it should show up. And then when it shows up at their door, you say, oops, no, you missed number 9, you missed number 12, and you missed number 13, and they cast it out. You know, when in essence, maybe engaging with that person, you might find that 9, 12, and 13 weren't even on the list, and you end up with no list, and you end up with a different kind of love. But it's really about just experiencing that moment versus trying to capture something, hold on to it, or even in ownership of, oh, now I'm loved. Don't you think that's a difficult step for a human consciousness sometimes? But once you step into the spiritual side, you're like, other thoughts and experiences open up?
Yeah, there's so many things to unpack in what you said. I think on a fundamental level, we are born with stories because of past lives. And then through our childhood, we get more and more stories put on us through our parents, through culture, the media, huge stories through the media about how a man should act, how a woman should act, how sexy we should look, and how we should be preparing ourselves for love, all sorts of things that make up these stories that pollute our minds. And those stories also make your ego and your identity. And the journey towards any kind of radical fulfillment, awakening, enlightenment, bliss, and joy is actually going to be losing those stories and what you could call death of the ego. But the ego is nothing more than stories and identity. So I feel like we are born in cages from past lives, and then we have more and more cages put on us, especially if you are, say, someone in your 50s and 60s, and you've grown up in a time when men were more rigid and more stoic and not so emotional, and women of this, and we had to have all these different roles and these gender stereotypes, and it wasn't good enough if you had the wrong skin color or the wrong sexual orientation. There were so many cages, and things are changing today. I mean, you know, slowly, but we're getting there, which is amazing. The fundamental thing really for me is what I like to call the little death, as I say in French, the petite mort. It is every little part of you slowly dies, every story slowly leaves you until you become more and more free of stories. I mean, you'll never be totally free, but the more stories you can get rid of, the more ideas of how you should be, how you should act, what you do expect. And as your stories are shedded from you, and you move more and more into love, radical love for yourself, more and more love for other people, more and more love for life, there's a whole switch around, less stories and more love. And that sets you up for radical experiences. So to go back to what you're saying in a way, like when you meet someone, you know, I've been through quite a few relationships. I've been married twice before my current marriage. And when I met my current partner, which was 2 years ago, I come so far in life, so many experiences, so many stories have dissolved, whether it's through working with shamans and Tibetan lamas, and I mean, I've been around the world working with radical, secretive, powerful masters, seeking out the best of the best, and I've had this accelerated development, but in the end of the day, it has been the shedding and dissolving of stories and ego, and more this sort of universal love. So when I met my partner, she had gone through a similar kind of process, which I didn't know about, and the first time I met her, which it could look like a coincidence, but of course it wasn't, we happened to be in the same place at the same time, one of those miracles of life, you could say. And there was an immediate feeling of, wow, radical energy. You know, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I still had many stories. So I might have looked at a woman and thought, is she like really physically attractive? Is she sexy? All that nonsense, you know. But now, when I met, we're both in our 50s. So the woman I'm married to now, when we first met, the first thing I felt was her energy. It just blew me away. I was like, wow, what amazing energy. And then this beautiful heart I could feel, this love. So it's a profound kind of feeling when you don't have a checklist because your ego is dying and you don't have stories, and you can meet someone and truly engage and sense, feel the other person's heart and spirit, and then you can have a profound relationship, because our relationship, this is my third marriage, and our relationship is based on primarily and above all things, spirit and heart. We have the most profound, loving, unconditional, accepting relationship, and we have the most profound experience in terms of spirit and energy, and even tantra, which I can talk about, which is a beautiful advanced relationship skill. So our relationship is 90% spirit and heart. And I mean, we do look after our bodies, we're both into huge nutrition, and we do exercise. And we're not that crazy, but we exercise. So we do have a balance in life, body, mind, and spirit. But in terms of where the priorities lie, it's spirit and heart first, and then body and nutrition and exercise and so forth. So I think that makes a fundamentally profound and beautiful relationship. And that's what it's about. The whole journey is less and less ego, less and less stories, and more love.
You know, I am in my late 60s, and truly when I look back at my history, you know, our parents, my parents, you know, they came off of the war. It came off of a depression. It came off of very hard times. And if we think about how the human had to learn to survive to be able to make it to these decades, it pretty much was a very difficult human kind of existence. But it was necessary because for each turn, you kind of did collect all those identities. You know, our parents didn't even finish high school, many. Then we came along, and it was, you know, you're going to be the first one to go to college, then you get a degree, and then, you know, in the 80s and 90s, one degree wasn't enough. You needed 2 and 3, you know, and then in, you know, the 2000s, it was how much other stuff could you collect and how important were you? And in essence, when you're really on this spiritual journey, you kind of are starting to shed all of that in reverse. And many times people will say, oh, man, my soul journey, it was just so tough. It is tough for many in different decades, because to be able to shed all that and say, but that is who I am, and then you meet someone and they say, who are you? And you're going, you know, like I've said on the radio before, I'm spinning a Rolodex in my head thinking about what is that story of me that they want to be able to engage with, because otherwise they're just going to move on, you know, because they aren't connected. They aren't into that space and time of connecting with the energy and knowing someone more deeply, versus being able to say, oh, I'm kind of needing something from you, or I can only do you with my awareness. So a lot of times, you know, I've had other marriages too. It's that those marriages were very vital, because what they did is, I always say, thank you so much for co-partnering with me along this journey, because they were essential. We all learned from each other. We went through different aspects and experiences, and they were so vitally important. And they brought me to today.
I agree totally. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree
and
totally.
I think sometimes we look back at our life and we want to cast it out as if it was the wrong choice, the wrong exit off the highway. Those are bad people. I did those things wrong, blah, 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 blah. And that's further separation. When in essence, we want to bring it back together where there is no separation, that those were just experiences and that's what it was, period. That's it. It's not about judging anyone or anything. And I'm going, holy crap, isn't that really cool? Yeah, I did something that wasn't great. Fantastic. Let's look at it in a different aspect. Where did it bring me to? What did it draw from me? How did I feel about it? Well, what I learned was I had a different emotion that was stored up in there, and I never knew anything about it.
Exactly.
So I think we're bringing, just as you share in your book, Divine Love, you're bringing out those other emotions, those other feelings, those other essences, and you're living from a different toolbox, so to speak. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a few things there that I really like. There's one thing one really good attitude I like to have, which is when you look back on your past, you try to give thanks for everything positive and everything negative. So if I look back at my father, for example, he was probably a man of his generation. He couldn't say I love you, couldn't give affection. So if I'm going to blame him, I could blame him for not being affectionate, not teaching me, kind of love from a man's perspective. But also I can blame him for the good things. And that he was a man who was very big into social justice and very big into making a difference in the planet. He was a man also very, very skeptical. So even though he was an atheist and I was having these profound psychological and psychic and clairvoyant experiences when I was young, the fact that he was skeptic taught me not to take things at face value and to question everything. So when I traveled around the world dealing with radical, powerful masters in Tibet and Peru and all over the world, I would always be very questioning and skeptical. So it stopped me going down rabbit holes, which may have been dangerous or fraudulent or misleading, and helped me get to the truth. So every single relationship we have, we can go back and do what I call a full blame. Blame for all the positive and all the negative. And the negative is amazing because, as you said, you learn so much from it, right? And I feel like you have a kind of path as a soul. And when you're on the ideal path, you know you're on the path because you feel peaceful and you feel joyful. And when you take what I call a detour, you don't feel peace and joy, but you have a learning experience. So everything you're doing in life, you're either on the path feeling peaceful and joyful, or you're taking a detour and having an uncomfortable learning experience. But eventually, you get back on the path. So life is made up continually of either being on the path and feeling great, or detouring and learning. But everything is helpful. Everything gets you to where you want to be, and everything is a stepping stone to where you are today. And everything has made you who you are. So that's quite fascinating. The accumulation of everything and the accumulation of all your stories until you come to the point where you have this, what I believe is like an epiphany, a profound experience where you realize that you can just park spirituality for a moment and just focus on the word love. Because if you have spirituality without love, then you don't have spirituality. The whole thing is love. Love is the core of it all. That's why the last book I wrote is called Divine Love, because I'd come to these, through these 10 years of traveling and learning and doing the most radical things with radical people around the world. And I came to the point where I realized everything comes down to this radical love. The more love you can have for yourself, which I'm not going to pretend is easy, that's an experience in itself and a commitment and an attitude. But the more you can, you know what I like to say to a lot of my clients now? If you imagine that you are a particular flower, and I am a particular flower, and somebody else is a particular flower. So let's say, for example, you are a lotus, and I am, say, a rose, okay? So we are totally different flowers. So there's no point, first of all, comparing each other. Your job is to be the best lotus you can be, and I want to be the best rose I can be. So I never want to compare to anyone else. That serves no purpose at all. And one of the worst things is all these magazines and these TV shows that parade people in front of us and say, this is how you should look. You should have a gorgeous six-pack if you're a man. You're supposed to be lovely curves if you're a woman. You're supposed to have hair like this and dress like this and say this and do that. In the meantime, we are comparing our time and losing ourselves, not being happy. So your job is to focus utterly and completely on yourself and find out how you can be this lotus that you are and not compare. And the second thing is, if you imagine this flower that you are, many of the petals are still folded in and some of the petals are folded out. So the folded parts are where your hidden parts are. The parts of you that are maybe from a past life or something that you find shameful, something you're embarrassed about, something you don't like about yourself. And what happens is many of the lotus petals are folded in and holding that dark energy, that dysfunctional, sad energy, right? And the more you can love yourself, it's like opening up every petal and revealing what's under the petal, whatever it is, every single bit of it. any dark thought you done, anything you did you were embarrassed about, if you had a relationship and you still blame yourself for something, or you're still angry at someone else, or you haven't forgiven, that is all sitting under the petals of the flower. And the more you can bombard love into your own flower so that every single petal gradually opens up, then you can start to have the most radical fulfillment and profound, transcendent experiences. So that's what I feel like it's about. It's really about being completely the flower that you are, revealing everything that's in those petals, and then basically radiating out and enjoying the sun and the rain and just growing and becoming the beautiful flower you're meant to be.
You know, I have shared many times on this radio show that truly when you get to the point of really, you've kind of like breached all of this stuff and kind of like a world opens up to you and like actually the cosmic essence opens up to you. I've always said that truly the I am it's a ball of glitter inside of you. Your humanness is your wetsuit, and your stories and your identity is badges that are along all of the wetsuits stuck on there. The essence is that how do you look through that wetsuit? How many layers of density do you have to go through of badges to get to correspond to another person? When another person looks at you, they're in essence kind of just scanning you. You know, we've all known that. You walk into a room and someone looks you up and down. They're scanning you, you know. They're reading all of those badges to be able to know to engage. Sometimes, you know, when you can walk into a room, I've done this my entire life because I've been open, is that I would notice that, like, I would feel the energy of someone and I wouldn't even remember their name, didn't remember the conversation, had no idea what they looked like, but I would have grasped into that energy source and engaged with that. And when you do that, it's sort of like... it's something you can hardly even explain in words because it doesn't have words to explain it. And it's not something that you can say this is how it feels, senses, and touches. It's just something that is. You know, I can remember, just as you spoke about darkness, instantly a vision came to me, is that, you know, my life has been very traumatic, you know, a lot of times. And I would say, oh, were those experiences there for me to learn? And they absolutely were not for me and my path. They were for me to go in and shine the light in this darkness space. I remember, you know, walking in when my parents were fighting and just standing in the doorway and just holding still as if sort of like placing a light there. You know, and then they would turn around and see me and they would stop, you know. So in essence, you can feel your position in this world when you start being able to open up and notice, wow, I'm seen here for something more than all of this other stuff. And how can I bring more of that into the world? You know, I think people are looking for this grandeur kind of, this is my purpose, this is my mission in life. They're going to put me up in neon signs and lights, and they're going to hold me up there, and I'm going to venerate, and I'm going to wear, you know, white and all this other stuff. That's what people are looking for and seeking, when in essence, all of that is just your perception of this outside identity, when really the essence inside never speaks. It never shows. It's like... I call it like shooting stars or whispers in the wind. You know, you could sit down sometimes, I'll feel a breeze go by and I go, who just passed me? You know? Because when you can engage in other dimensions, you really tap into that, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite fascinating because if you think about how people are built, I mean, I'm a psychologist, and that was the first thing that fascinated me and why I went to university, but it is the way people are truly constructed, especially if you have a clairvoyance on your side who've had these powerful awakening experiences, is you start to see, I mean, you use different kind of terms, which I really like, the badges and so forth. I mean, I had one client who very jokingly said this, and I thought actually it was quite profound because she had gone through what I call a Shamanic Journey with me, which takes about 8 hours, which was something I learned from Peru and so forth with the shamans. But she said to me, I looked inside myself, and to give the terms, but she said this to me. She said, inside of me, I can see that there's a radical, beautiful, bright, shimmering diamond that is my essence, pure white light, and it's surrounded by layers of dog poo. And I was like, okay, wow, that's quite a graphic description. But she said, basically, it's like a whole lot of dog poos surrounding this diamond. And what we have to do is, like, excavate all the stuff which can be stories, it can be drama, everything we've been through in life, trauma. I mean, some people have been through horrific things like PTSD and car crashes and rapes and, horrible things in life. But all of this stuff is covering up the essence of who we are. You're totally right, and I love that. And the thing that's so exciting is that when you are able to find your own diamond and you've got rid of all the stuff covering it, exactly what you're saying, you can then start to approach people instead of trying to scan them and work them out psychologically and trying to tap into their stories and who they are and how to navigate with these people. You can actually approach someone, which I do a lot, and I love doing this. I approach people from what I call the I am space, which is the white light, the diamond that's inside of you. And it's inside all of us. And when you do that, as you rightfully said, you touch people in a way that's profound and deep, in a way that's hard to put into words, to understand mentally, to understand psychologically. So I love that, The divine light is, for me, the ultimate. And if I had to sum it up, I'd say the absolute intrinsic essence of you is this divine light, which some people call God or source, and it's inside every one of us. And it's almost like surrounded by this, what I call divine love. So when you approach someone and you're radiating or being who you truly are as an I am being, you can then affect people profoundly. And there's also another way to look at this, which I like a lot, and it's not exactly the same, but it's similar. I mean, the I am space is what I'd call the ultimate profound energy, because it's source of God. But of course, we have different ways we can affect people, because many people learn how to wield forms of higher energy. Like, you become a Reiki master, for example, and you learn how to access, let's just say, an energy that's 5 or 6 levels above you. So if you are hypothetically running at, say, 400 hertz of energy, just as a hypothetical example, and you learn how to access an energy that's 2,000 hertz, then you can bring that through you and help other people who have a lower energy. And of course, there's almost infinite layers of energy up to the source. So although the I am experience is radical and profound and it's the ultimate to get to, there are also many stepping stones that people can experience, whether it's becoming a Reiki master or learning deeper healing. And there's so many different modalities. And each one has what I would call a level of energy that's on the way to the source. So if you imagine there's a path going from you directly up to the source of God, and each one has got a higher level of frequency. The exciting thing is, and I'm sure you do this too, is as you journey out of body into multi-dimensions and you're working with beings of light, especially angels, angelic beings, which are amazing beings of high frequency, and as you journey up into these dimensions and you learn how to access these energies, you can bring these various energies back to help people with. So it doesn't have to just radiate the sort of I am light inside of you. You then learn how to do, as I'm sure you do, you learn how to bring healing to people through this profound level, depending on what level you access, of course. It's anywhere from, let's say, 0 up to infinity. But the higher energy you can bring in, the more profoundly you can heal people. True healing, radical healing, where you can just send energy to someone and create what I call profound and radical shifts. I was sitting on the beach yesterday with my wife, and we have amazing conversations. I'm so lucky, so thankful, so grateful. One of our favorite things to do is we have an apartment actually on the beach. So we walk out the front door, get our deck chairs, get our coffees, and sit down on the beach and have these fantastic discussions about energy and spirit. And just fantastic. Because we're doing so many things together, like tantric journeys and so forth. So part of our life is these experiences and these conversations. And I said to her yesterday on the beach, I said to her, there's so many spiritual practices where you're basically trying to excavate an entire mountain by using a teaspoon. So you might sit on a cushion and meditate for 30 years and achieve a certain amount, but it is like using a teaspoon to excavate a mountain. It's valuable, and many things are valuable, like meditation and so on, but what we want to do is find where are the ways that we can take a bulldozer and really make a huge dent in the mountain. If we try to achieve something, are we going to do it a little bit every day for 30 or 40 years? Or is there a way we can do this to create a profound radical change in the space of 8 hours or in the space of 2 weeks? There must be ways to do this. And that's one of the reasons I travel the world, because I did psychology and I did all the postgraduate diplomas and I did hypnosis and became a Reiki master. I did so many different things and I just couldn't see a profound change. I thought, I'm not going to spend the next 40 or 30 years struggling to sort things out. And I remember I was in Peru with a shaman. I think he used to call himself the Rainbow Shaman. He was, in one way, like a legend, but also very secretive. And he sat down. I wrote this in a book called The Fractal Key, which is all about shamans and all the secrets of the shamans. And he said to me, I mean, he always smiled and laughed. He was like the sort of the Buddha of shamans, you know. And he said to me, do you want to sit on a cushion for the next 40 years, or do you want to meet God tomorrow afternoon? And he laughed at me. And I was like, I was laughing too, because I thought, come on, you know. And then my dad had taught me to be super skeptical, thank goodness for that. And I challenged him. And the next day he did something radical, which took me straight into the source, and it blew my mind. And then I started to realize that there are ways to make radical, profound change if we're willing to embrace that and set aside our fears and our dogmas and our all the things that cloud our minds. You know, I mean, it's phenomenal. You know, some people have PTSD, as you know, for 10 or 20 years. PTSD is one of the most horrible things to go through. It can happen because of wartime experiences, battlefield. It can happen because of rape, trauma, abuse. And PTSD has been notoriously hard to cure, extremely hard. And if you're lucky, you can just move slightly down to become an acute stress disorder instead of PTSD. But nonetheless, most people have it for life, and they have to take various drugs, and it's a nightmare. But now people are discovering that PTSD can be cured very, very quickly in 2 or 3 sessions using profound techniques, which are, I mean, all over the internet nowadays. So it's not a big secret anymore, but there are ways to do it. So I don't want to talk long, give you a chance to talk back to me in the conversation, but there are radical, profound things nowadays which we're realizing they've been on the earth for thousands of years, but they tend to be hidden and very secretive because people have these, you know, stories which keep them in prison, in cages, like it's either religion or it's some sort of fear, or somebody says, oh, that's bad, that's going to hurt you in some way. But actually, when you meet somebody who's extremely advanced, who's shining out divine light and love, which is for me the main measurement, is that person operating in love or not? And then you surrender to them in trust, and profound things can happen. So that's pretty much what I do. I mean, I've written 12 books, but I do a lot of work with clients creating radical, profound change. And that is, for me, super, super rewarding. You know, when someone comes back to you after 1 or 2 journeys or whatever it's been and say, wow, you just changed my life. That is, that's the ultimate, isn't it? Because what else is there but to live in service to other people in some way, shape or form?
Yeah, I think the idea, so many times I've said, is that if you can just touch someone and just, there's a lot of gazers out there now that might help for some people, but sometimes just the energy through your hands for many people is truly an experience that you can create. You know, I was a dental hygienist for decades, and I can honestly tell you I had many of my patients, I mean, I think I had over like 500,000 people that I cleaned their teeth, and there was this one guy, and he would never go. I had a lot of them. They would never come up unless I was there and blah, blah, blah. But at any rate, I cleaned his teeth in like 1970-something or other. And I moved away, and then I saw him again in the year 2004 in a grocery store when I moved back to the area. And he said, oh, my God, can you clean my teeth today? And I'm like, what? And it was like, here after like, 25 years. This guy had just had such a connection with my energy. It wasn't about getting his teeth cleaned. It was about the energy connection which he was seeking, you know. And I think that it's really what's happening now is that the identity is coming away in our perceptions and our judgments and all of this stuff that we kind of like mount up, and we say, you know, we need to have that. And we don't want to attune that to a spiritual journey, because then will kind of really get us messed up in the long run, too. You know, when I was thinking about, you wrote in your book about being enough, you know, and I wrote on the bottom, as soon as I read it, it says, I wrote, for who or for what? Because still that's a dichotomy. That's still showing your separation. Because enough is good enough, not good enough. It still brings up those questions, and I think the story is still into that human paradigm story. But once you reach that, yeah, when you reach that,
I think you have to think about stepping stones. You see, it's a bit like you said about people's badges. So what you do is, you know, when you're meeting someone, whether it's a client or just someone in daily life, you're trying to see where they're at and where you can take them next. And so, for me, when you say, I am enough, It is tapping into one of the most fundamental problems people have, which is people walk around always feeling like they're not good enough because they compare themselves to other people. They compare themselves to the media. They compare themselves to athletes. And look, only 5% of the world are athletes, right? Probably 4%. So we shouldn't compare ourselves to athletes. You know, you look at The Rock or Jason Momoa, you're working out 6 days a week for 2 hours a day in a gym. And that's not for us. They are athletes, someone who's playing baseball or basketball. So if a man is growing up and he has this vision that he should look like The Rock or Jason Momoa, he needs to have muscles all over the place and he needs to look a certain way because that's what society is saying, that's when you're saying to the person, wait a minute, what's the end game here? Why do you need all these muscles? When you think about it, the only goal for all is to attract the right partner. And what you really want is someone who's going to love you crazily. And love is what the ultimate end game is. And if you can find love without having to go to a gym, then forget about the gym. So the I Am Enough story is for helping people who are, say, you know, maybe in a certain paradigm, saying, you are enough. You are enough emotionally, psychologically, your body is fine. Who cares what your body looks like, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what I'm saying in terms of I Am Enough as well, is that, you know, we have a preoccupation with our bodies. We really do. I mean, it's such a massive thing in the West in particular. You know, it's caused by this whole culture now where men have to go to the gym and get muscles. They have to go and do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They have to do MMA. There's so much inspiration, which sadly is based around nonsense, about ego and about that I should be, you know, a real strutting testosterone kind of man. And a woman have the same thing. And there's a lot of shame around bodies too. It's surprising how much shame there is because we have these ideas of how we should look, how we should be in bed, how we should act sexually, how our body should look. And we carry shame around. Everyone carries the shame around to various degrees. It can be small amounts and big amounts. And the shame is exactly the opposite of I'm enough and exactly the opposite of unconditional love. And that's why I wrote the book Divine Love. So this stepping stone for me is almost the most important first step is get yourself in a position where you love yourself unconditionally and accept that you were born with a body, which is like driving a car on this earth. You get one car, and it happens to be a particular kind of car, a particular kind of brand of car, and a kind of model of car. Some people come into this life maybe with a Ferrari, some people come in with a Volkswagen, but that's your car for life. So you need to look after the car, make sure it's running well, give it the right nutrition, and maybe buff out some scratches sometimes, because you've got it for life, so look after it. But don't make the body your identity, and don't think your body is going to get you an amazing relationship. You know, it's going to get you a profound fulfillment in life. It's not going to. The body is nothing more than a vehicle, and we need to say it's enough. You know, when I was 22, I got married, extremely young, very naive, and I had an insane body because I was doing exactly that. I was in the gym. I'd come out of the military. You know, I was into physical fitness, and my body was sculpted and honed. It was like, wow. I mean, I had an incredible body. I was married for 1 year and 3 months, and I came home to find my wife. Admittedly, we're both extremely young, but I found her in bed with my best friend. And you suddenly realize what really counts in life. There was something wrong there in terms of who we were in life, what we were doing. We were too young, a whole lot of things. And, you know, now I look after my body. I really big into nutrition. My wife and I, we work out. We do it for health, first and foremost. Health and well-being. But not about the end game of trying to, you know, be sexy and trying to be super attractive, because all this stuff means nothing. So the I Am Enough is for people who are still getting to this point of unconditional love and not putting your body as your identity and being okay with all of who you are. And then, when you're ready, you take out a felt tip marker or a black pen and you scratch out the word enough. And then you just become I am.
Right. You know, I think in closing, Stephen, I want to talk about this too, is the idea is that when you can really come to the I am kind of time, people think that you're in perfection, that you have nothing wrong with your body, that you can jump and leap and you're good regardless of your age or your circumstances, that you've got all this abundance and you're stepped into it and it's fantastic. And I think that's such a spiritual disservice to the humans that are on this earth at this time, because many, as we've remembered, we're fluctuating back and forth in dimensions right now. So in essence, yes, all of that is available to us in a higher frequency, in a higher dimension. However, we are still, our foot still goes into the shoes that we bought at JCPenney's on sale, with maybe our last dollar for some people, So the idea is that we're still in this human story and we cannot shed it, but we have to understand that we are experiencing all of this. So what I really always try to share, and perhaps you can talk about this, is that once I've gotten to the point where I said before about the soul essence is the I am, for me, that little ball of glitter, I kind of can take my vehicle, which I call my body, and I kind of can move it around, and I can transform it, and we call shape-shifting, or we show up in a place and time, or we engage with this or that or the other, or sometimes we put up a lot of resistance, and we kind of want to create change in others, or we are the light, just as I shared, and we were in the place of darkness. So there's a lot of things that we do. And we're not supposed to just be glorified and quantified. We're supposed to be engaging and doing in these works and these things. And our soul has, it's here and it's bumping into things and it's moving around. So I think the idea is that sometimes people will say, but I have this, so it's wrong. No, it's not. That's exactly where you're supposed to be and doing. Nothing is right or wrong. It's just the I am soul. I just think of it as, hey, you're just this energy wave, and man, I hit a tree today, and wow, I think I'm going to have to sit here for a little while, and then some people get sick for a little while or whatever. Oh, okay, cool. So it must mean I need to rest for a while, or, my relationships, they're doing great today. Fantastic. So gain some more energy, or, hey, for me, I bought all of these plants to make tomatoes and peppers to have them grow, and not one of them grew. And I go, oh, people could walk around and say, I can't grow anything. No, it was just that it wasn't the right places, it wasn't the right time, and say, oh, cool, fantastic. And then just let them, then they showed up in the fall, and they produced a pepper, just one. But that's all that was needed. Sometimes we think we need to have, and we set up a story, and we want to be able to see all of that. That's our conscious mind. So I think truly when you're talking about the I am and the divine love, you are out of this conscious mind. You are in a subconscious, unconscious kind of state, and you're in an energy form. So I think really what you and I are talking about is how many times a day or night can you jump into that space to be re-energized, to be resourced, to have a knowing and feel it deeply. And then if you go back into the human world, you do those things for a little while. Don't you think that that's truly where we are in this year 2021, 22, is that we're bouncing back and forth from those?
No, I think we're living in very interesting times at the moment. There's a lot of stress because of what's happening around the world, but at the same time, there's a lot of progress, I get really heartened when I see things like the Me Too movement, and I see things like people getting away from such strong specific gender orientation and sexual orientation. It's more like, let me just be a light being, a soul, which of course has no gender, and there's no masculine and feminine. A soul is just a soul. And let me just be a soul being that's manifesting through this body or this car I'm driving. I think there's a move toward that, which I think is exciting. And it's a bit like you said, we're stepping on the shoulders of all the previous generations, and it's all an evolution. And especially in the West, and I live in Los Angeles too, so there's a lot more of that. There's this feeling like I can be more of who I am now. I can be this flowing, truly light being, which is having a certain amount of love and light, a certain frequency, and expressing itself on this earth. And as you said, there's times when you're going to wobble, times when you're going to not feel so good, whether you didn't look after your body or you're just having a rough day or something upset you on the television. That's okay. But the more we can just accept ourselves and be a truly free being. For me, when I think about the ultimate happiness is coming down to, as I said before, acceptance and love and freedom. And freedom is this ability to stop saying, I should be something. I don't have to be having what's called a masculine trait or a feminine trait. I can be a man in a body with testosterone, but I can still be vulnerable, and I can still cry, and I can still be loving, compassionate, and kind, and I can be strong, and I can be driven, and I can be ambitious. I can be all of these things. Instead of giving them labels, I can just let these energies flow through me. And when I meet people, I can also allow these energies to flow through me. The mixture of compassion and kindness and love and inspiration and driving people and saying, come on, let's make things happen. So there's a range of things that can move through you. So for me, it is exactly as you're saying. It is about freedom, it's about flow, and it's about being and letting things just be as they are. And as you evolve more and more, you'll naturally influence other people, because the more you evolve your own consciousness, the more you evolve your own love state, your own compassion, you naturally will affect other people without even saying a word, because your energies and your frequencies are what people meet first. And then it's followed by your words and maybe how you look and your appearance and so forth. So that's the secret. Every one of us are on a path at some level and radiating a frequency to other people. So we're automatically influencing people. And our goal is to keep on allowing ourselves to flourish in love and freedom and joy and bliss and just be who we are at a particular moment. And gradually we just helping other people, which is love is service, really.
Right. I think that, Stephen, we had a great conversation today, and really what we're doing is we're highlighting some of our experiences, some of our stories, and being able to say others. Sometimes you need to bring your stories to the forefront, because your story, you will be able to look at it in retrospect and see something totally different, and that's when it's freeing. When you shared before, you said about when people get stuck and they're kind of like really, really stuck. And I always say to them, I can distinctly remember, I think it was probably about 20, maybe 25 years ago, I had said to this, I think it was a psychic at the time I was talking to, and I said, I'm really stuck in the abyss. My high heel is stuck in the door jamb. I'm stuck in the abyss. And she couldn't understand it. She didn't know what it meant. And I kind of would say this all the time to her. She could never understand it. And when I look back at it in retrospect, I totally understood and knew what was going on. I was trying to share with her to enlighten something within her. And what it was is that you get stuck and you're ready to venture into that space and time. And it's there. It's sort of like I see that package, or I see those little glistening lights off in the distance, and you're so ready. I think many people will say, but all of a sudden I'm afraid. And I think fear is a really natural reaction. It's a natural emotion. We sometimes want to get rid of it and say, I don't want to have that. But in essence, when you have it, say, hey, cool, fear. How about come and walking along with me? Let's go see what those things look like. You know what I mean? So in other words, take that which seems to turn over something in your gut and bring it along on the journey and see what it's about. When you get there, fear will say, oh, this is really cool. And then you don't have that fear anymore. So in your essence, you're able to say, wow, that's really cool if I can do that with a lot of the things that have been holding me back or kept me stuck. That's really a bountiful journey, and you just start ripping through things. You're cleaning out closets, you're throwing out old stuff you don't need anymore, you're transitioning, you're moving on, and I think that's a super fantastic place to really experience, don't you think?
I agree completely. I think what you're saying is for me, is that we may be having these transcendent experiences and be in a very high state of resonance, frequency, and divine light.
Right.
But in actual fact, we're also throwing out a ladder for people by offering all our stories and offering various steps. So, for example, when I wrote these 12 books, 10 of them are novels and 2 of them are life guides. But the novels are actually containing body, mind, spirit teachings within the story itself, because there's no point just reading a story. So what I've done is when I wrote these 12 books, I made sure that there are a lot of body, mind, spirit teachings inside the books, even though 10 of them are written in a story format, like a novel.
Right.
It's very important, I think, for people to be able to reach out and find a rung on the ladder or find something that will inspire them if they're stuck and so forth. So the 12 books are written in total are there exactly for that purpose, to say to people, look, if you're stuck in a relationship, there's an answer. If you're stuck in a body situation, there's an answer. And if you're stuck in trying to work out how to move your consciousness forward, here's an answer. So I've sprinkled tons of body-mind teachings, body-mind spirit teachings throughout all the 12 books. And these things are helping people. If they can't talk to me directly through, say, a life coaching course or a Skype session or something, they can just pick up a book, because a book costs, I mean, what does a book cost these days? Like $7 on Amazon. So, and it's right there at your fingertips. And I've been both privileged and made a choice to spend 10 years of my life traveling around the world looking for the answers, because I was never satisfied. And I would not relent. I would not rest until I found the answers. And I push people so hard out there. I said, I don't want to have ideology. I don't want to have another story. I want you to show me what you can do. Show me magic. Show me power. Show me ways to create radical transformation. So I've made a lot of sacrifice I've made along the ways. For example, I didn't have children because there were too many things I was trying to do and traveling for 10 years. But I've come to the point where my greatest desire and passion can just pop onto Amazon or pop onto my website and look at the 12 books and find which one appeals to them, which one they are drawn to intuitively, which one feels right for them psychologically. I'd like to quickly mention my website. My website is iamstephenshaw.com, but you spell it, Stephen is spelled with a PH, not a V, so it's Stephen. So my website is I-am-Stephen-Shaw.com, and Shaw is S-H-A-W. So if anybody's out there wanting to get some radical, profound markers, some ways to look up how to make changes, body, mind, and spirit, all the books are out there. Just look at what you're drawn to intuitively, what feels right for you, and you can create quick, powerful change.
Very good. Well, Stephen, it was such a pleasure to have you with us here today. We thank you so much for sharing your journey, your energy, and your light with us, and it was such a pleasure to have you.
It was an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I wish you supreme love and beauty and joy in your life.
Thank you. If you'd like to find out more information about Stephen Shaw, please click on the link on the bottom of today's show page and go directly to his website for more information and all of the information about all of his books. Please do check it out. Many of us are looking for help and guidance, perhaps maybe a little pebble or a little token. We are all here to be able to hand you the can opener, to be able to open up your own box of joy. So thank you so much for joining us today on this wonderful journey of inspiration and high-frequency energy and saying, you know what, I too am in the right place, I am fine, I am safe, and I am enjoying this life. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit dr.jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.